are up for our next session that you are going to be doing, which is an exciting one. So I will jump off stage and allow you to intro our next guest, and we will take it from there.
All right. I am going to switch gears into a more technical conversation now. Welcoming Charlie. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, good to see you again. How are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
Can't complain. I love Mondays because I love my job.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if you got the next session, but or the previous session and got to hear Phil, but exciting to talk a little bit about leadership and on the mission side from the veteran experience. So now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk a little bit more tactical and AI, technology, building teams around technology implementation. So I'm very excited to have Charlie, the CEO of Gladly, with us today. Charlie, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about Gladly, the tech stack that you run, how you help customers currently, and then we're going to dive into our talk.
Cool. Thank you. So Charlie Besecker, CEO of Gladly. I started here 18 months ago as president. Before Gladly, I spent 6 years running go-to-market for companies that focus on direct-to-consumer and retail. And I spent 6 years at Qualtrics from Series A through the SAP acquisition. I live in Park City, Utah, and I have an amazing, amazing wife. And I have an amazing daughter, and I also have a son who is quite the handful. So that's a little bit about me. Gladly was founded 10 years ago with a very simple premise that the way customer service technology worked was completely broken. And everybody has the center object is a case or a ticket. And so Gladly set out to build technology where the core object is the customer. And so Gladly's technology provides a single lifelong conversation across every single channel. And that enables us and the brands that we partner with to provide a level of personalization at scale that is impossible with a ticket-based system. And the example I use is I had to call Travis Matthew, one of our customers, because I got the wrong package. And they knew who I was because of my phone number. And they said, while I'm pulling that up, how was the golf trip with your brother 2 years ago? So that's only possible with our technology. And so then, we incorporate AI. And so AI can sit on top of all of those channels and have access to all of that data. And so our AI can also provide that level of personalization at scale. And so we have agentic and conversational AI that goes across the entire digital customer journey, and it works on every single channel. And our customers include some of the highest affinity brands in global retail, from Nordstrom to Crate and Barrel to REI to Sephora to the Farmer's Dog to Ulta Beauty. And when I was looking at Gladly, I realized that a lot of those customers have changed my household's consumer patterns because of how good their customer support and customer service is. And so I realized that a lot of those brands are powered by Gladly, and that's how they provide that level of world-class customer experience. So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about Gladly.
Nice. I love the conversational flow in one spot, right? From an agent perspective, that's gold as well, right? To have all that knowledge sitting in front of you when you're actually trying to serve and solve a problem. Now you can see it holistically instead of in pieces. Nothing's more frustrated as a customer to call in and have to start over from the beginning.
Yeah, indeed. I sent out a survey right when I started, and I surveyed a group of North American consumers, and I said, "How often do you like to repeat yourself on a call?" And people are like, "Was that really worth it?" I'm like, "I just wanted to confirm that the number is 0.0% of people like to repeat themselves on customer service calls."
Right, and we've all had that experience before. I can guarantee it. So glad that you're helping tackle that at Gladly. So we're going to do a quick poll before we get started. We're going to talk about trust. So where does the customer experience trust break down most often for your customers? So this is for everyone in the audience. Is it in the access security? Is it for billing, disputes, refunds, complex problems that require complex troubleshooting, investigations, or at the escalations and handoff point? So lots of places where trust can break down in the process and the stack of solving and handling customer problems. But we'd love to hear from you as an audience what you are seeing kind of the most of. And so let's talk, while everyone's answering that and we kind of take a look at the results, let's talk a little bit about AI implementation. So Charlie, my background's in technology, so I love AI. I have followed it for many years that I've been in technology, and it is changing leaps and bounds. And I know everybody gets a little tired. It's like AI is the new buzzword, but it really is the forefront technology that's happening in our world today in every aspect of our lives. And embracing it is part of what we have to do as a culture, right? And it's here. So how do we use it effectively? So one of the questions I have for you is some people are obviously scared of adopting AI. So where have you seen it go poorly? And then what do you think are the biggest contributing factors to that?
Yeah, and I think it's a really important question. And, depending on the source, if you look at Forrester or McKinsey or MIT studies that have come out in the last 6 months, we're seeing an enterprise implementation failure rate somewhere between 60 and 95%,
Wow.
as in 60 to 95% of enterprise AI initiatives are failing. And so to me, the main buckets are, first and foremost, expectations of the user or of the organization themselves. We all grew up in the era of computing, which is deterministic, meaning we can get a predictable outcome every time, and that's just not what large language models are. And so a lot of people have expectations that if I deploy AI to my customers, it'll work absolutely perfectly, absolutely identically every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not a realistic expectation with some of this technology. The second I would say is internal alignment. And we see this quite a bit where the board and a group of executives say top-down mandate, we will be doing AI and we'll do it in this way. But those top-down mandates might not map well to the organizational structure or the internal politics or even internal systems. I know one of the largest airlines in the United States had a top-down mandate only for an AI vendor to go in there and realize that this person doesn't talk to that person. This seemingly same piece of data sits in totally disparate systems within that airline. And so internal alignment, I tell everybody that you have to understand goals, means, metrics, and priorities for everybody that's involved, in these types of initiatives. And that doesn't just apply to AI. I think that's just generally best practice. One thing that we've seen is AI is so blindingly exciting and new that I realize a lot of people are kind of forgetting basics of business. And people will ask me internally, how do I measure the success of my AI initiative? And I say the same way you would measure success of any initiative before AI, we're just using different tools to get us there. The next one bucket I would say is a really, really big one, and that is bad data. A lot of companies fail to invest sufficiently early on in their data infrastructure, data cleanliness, and data hygiene. Data powers your AI in some way, shape, or form, and so bad data is probably, I would say, from a technology perspective, is the single biggest reason that we see a lot of AI fail. Next, I would say, especially within customer experience, we're seeing a lot of disparate systems. And so you might have one system that powers, you might have a help desk system like Gladly, and then you might go bolt on an 18-month-old piece of AI that is a totally disparate vendor. And the more disparate systems that you put in place, the higher the likelihood that those systems aren't going to work perfectly every time and create possibly a negative experience. I have two more. One is vendor incentives. What is the actual incentive? What's the monetization method of the vendors that you're dealing with? And there's a lot of, in customer experience, there's a lot of vendors out there that only make money if they deflect a human being. And so everybody's heard just, horror stories and dealt with it ourselves where you're saying agent transfer, talk to a human being. And people say this AI isn't working because it's not letting me transfer. But the reality is if that company only makes money when they deflect a customer, that's part of their vendor incentive. And so I say about a lot of these vendors, that's not a bug, it's a feature. because if they transfer to a human, they had AI costs regardless. So they actually lose money. And so we take a very different approach. And then the last one is very simple, but market expectations set by inappropriate and irresponsible marketing by the AI community is another reason that people fail. Because those expectations that I met at the very top, a lot of those are being perpetuated by the AI industry itself. And satisfaction equals expectations minus reality. And so I think that's a big part of this as well. So I know that was long-winded, but it's a really great question. And if anybody's thinking about adopting AI, those are the ones that I would look out for most.
Yeah. How do you suggest they kind of start to work for those, like prior to adopting, say, a Gladly platform, right? The data cleansing, making sure they have what I've kind of seen is processes, procedures are not written for the new technology, right? They're written in the old way of doing things. And so to successfully adopt AI into your programs, you need to rethink and kind of reimagine how you're doing things currently. So how long do you think people should spend doing that before they start working with, like, say, a vendor like Gladly?
I think my answer is a little shocking. My recommendation is just find a vendor that you align with from like a values perspective, an outcomes
Okay.
perspective, a methodology perspective, and just get started. The reality is it is a very iterative approach. And to your point, it's so new that there isn't necessarily a playbook.
Right.
Your organization probably hasn't done this exact type of thing before. So I would say select your vendor very carefully for methodology and values and all that type of stuff, and just get started, because it is a very, very iterative process.
Right. And you want to look for a partner that you trust, right? That is also wanting the outcome that you're wanting in this implementation, and not just selling you a piece of software or hardware that they'll be out the door after you sign the paper and pay the annual subscription.
Yep. And there's a lot of that out there, because some AI companies are growing very quickly, but with very different organizational design than we see in
Right.
traditional technology companies, where they might not have a support team. That's something very much to consider.
Yeah. So let's talk about what it looks like when it's good. So we talked about kind of what to look out for, but when AI is really working, how do the customers really feel taken care of, and how does that look?
Yeah, so we have a very strong belief, and our methodology is we are trying to partner with brands and organizations to help get their customer the most direct path to the optimal outcome.
Mhm.
It seems really basic, but as I said before, that is not what everybody out there in CX AI is necessarily trying to do. And then I think I'll go back to alignment. Different people care about different things. Your frontline CX leader might care about, agents assisting their agents. Your CX, head of CX might care about cost reduction, but the CIO might be worried about, what happens to my company if agentic commerce changes where I get my customers from. So all of those need to be aligned, and I'll focus on CX leadership just for the audience. It really comes back to how well can you identify what the person wants, what their state of what their emotional state is. Where do you want that to be routed based on all of that data that you can get right away? If you're using Gladly, we can do very different things for high value customers, like high LTV customers. We can route them and bypass AI entirely. But I can tell you that organizations have different goals. And so I've one customer everybody here has heard of saying, I want as few of these conversations to go to our humans as possible, i.e., we are actually after deflection and cost reduction. And so that's a different answer for that group than I'll say this company name, because I think this is great. We were talking to REI recently, and REI says, we don't care. We just want the best experience in every single possible scenario.
Right.
And so I really view that as, how does the technology make that work? Well, one is seamless handoffs and really good infrastructure that passes context to that agent so that they can have the best possible interaction and as minimal repetition as possible. And I'll go back to one of the reasons AI fails. If you have a bunch of disparate systems that you're trying to patch together, it's really, really hard to do some things like provide a really good context summary in a handoff. I also view AI as this incredible tool that you can use in different ways. And there are certain scenarios where the best possible experience that you can provide is an instantaneous resolution. AI is great for that. I don't ever want to wait on the phone for 5 minutes to find out where my order is. And so understanding where the use cases are best situated for AI versus humans, or in some cases both. AI can handle a couple of questions and then hand off, which we see lower average handle time in a lot of cases, and then maintain that customer satisfaction. But our biggest thing is we partner with brands to lower costs and maintain CSAT to make sure that we're not eroding LTV over time. And I'm seeing a gold rush, or what I call a greed rush, to take advantage of some of these, operational efficiencies that we have, but it's at the expense of customer experience, which means you're going to have fewer and fewer customers. And we just did a primary research study and said 40% of people said that if they have any friction in being transferred to an agent, they're likely to switch brands because of that experience alone.
Yeah. I mean, I can identify with that myself. I recently had a terrible customer experience with a particular brand. And, if you can solve things with AI quickly, I mean, that's really what the customer wants. Like, they're calling, it's usually because they have some sort of issue. They want a quick resolution. They don't always want to talk to a human, but then you have certain scenarios. So Instant Teams, we do a lot of insurance claims and things for people. So if you have lost a spouse and you're calling in to get your insurance claim information, you want to talk to a person that can be empathetic to you in that situation, can help walk you through it, because you're looking for a little bit of emotional support as well as that, tactical answer that you're trying to get. And those are the situations where you want that human in the loop. You want that empathetic. But if a company and organization can design the best case scenarios where AI takes that lower level stuff, things that are automation, I just want to, return something really quick or whatever. And then you use the higher level resources for that empathetic moment when your customers really want that interactions. Like, maybe they were charged a couple of times and now they need to feel the brand loyalty that you're really going to take care of them. And that's the intersection of where that human needs to come into play. So I think both of those working together. And as Instant Teams, we're customer experience. We build these teams with the military spouse community. And I've had a lot of people ask me, especially in the last couple of years, Liza, what do you think about AI? Is that going to hurt your company? Is that going to take away? And I have the opposite feeling. I want brands to adopt AI because our military spouses are that tier 2, higher level support, the escalation, the empathy, the QA, help train the models, can help make that whole process a little better. I don't have to have teams of thousands and thousands to go on a customer account. If I can build a solid, smaller team around some AI, that's a win-win for everybody in the customer experience space and for the companies that are looking to kind of scale down some of those large implementations that they have and really make a better experience for their customers. So love everything.
Yeah, I think there's another well, first of all, I love your mission. As soon as you reached out, I agreed to do this immediately. And I think we're out to partner with people that think about customer experience in that way. And there are also people that think about it in a different way. And there are brands out there that realize that their AI is more likely to adhere to policy, whereas people are more likely to give into emotion and make exceptions to procedures that might cost a little bit of money. And again, we like to partner with the people that view customer experience as more valuable, than making an exception on a return window because somebody had a really sad story. And so there are people deploying it like that. But I think ultimately it can be deployed for good as long as people have the mindset that you and Instant Teams have.
Right. Yeah. We definitely have to have cultural alignment on all of that. And we all run companies, so we know bottom line is important. It's got to fit in the budget. It's got to fit it's got to check all those boxes, right? So you got to make decisions in all of those ways. So we took a poll at the beginning to kind of go through scenarios. Charlie, what do you think everybody has the most friction in the trust part out of those options?
I think it's this is, you're gonna hate this answer. I thought it was all of the above.
Okay.
I really thought it was all of the above. And then, the other thing is it could depend on a lot of factors, and it can change over time. You can be performing really well in a certain area. And as I said, a lot of this technology is new. Some of it is less predictable than we're accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other answer I would give is it can actually migrate pretty quickly over time. And so, we have an entire staff of people that's just constantly monitoring all of our active deployments, because you can literally leave on Friday, come in on Monday, and which of those problems you were dealing with might not be an issue anymore, and one that was working just fine might become an
Mm-hmm.
issue. So that's when I said it was really iterative. But I thought it was all of the above.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. So in the interest of time, let's go to one of them specifically. So let's go to the multiple attempts, multiple systems, multiple teams. So how do you avoid the AI loops when the issue is clearly not repeatable? How do you keep customers from getting stuck?
Well, I think it depends on how your system is designed. And I'll go back to, and I don't want this to be self-serving, but this is why I joined Gladly.
Mm-hmm.
With our single lifelong conversation, where every interaction you've ever had on any channel with a brand is available immediately to a human agent or to AI. There are no AI loops. Not to say that we don't sometimes route the wrong person to the wrong place in the wrong situation. Of course, that happens. We've processed 300 million conversations. Like, that has definitely happened, but we really designed our system so that there really are no AI loops. And what we're building now is the ability for humans to manage their own AI agents, which kind of takes the agent assist concept, and multiplies it by 100 in terms of what people are able to do. And so we just view, give people the right information, readily available in one pane of glass, and then give them as much control and power to be efficient and empathetic and personalized at scale as we possibly can. And it's a hard question for me to answer, because, as I said at the beginning, those AI loops for a lot of companies, like, that's their
Right.
revenue model. So that's the experience that they are necessarily trying to create for a lot of people, because that's how they make money. So
Yeah. Well, I would need to know who those brands are, so I make sure I don't get stuck there.
yeah, I don't believe in publicly disparaging my
I
competition,
know.
but I'm sure
I'm
I'm
just
sure it wouldn't be hard to figure out.
yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't ask you to do that. So let's end our talk a little bit on escalation helping to build trust within all of these AI implementations, that goes in hand with what Gladly does and what Instant Teams does, putting together this tier two kind of escalation support on top of a great piece of AI implementation, and having that conversation all in one spot, which is invaluable to an agent. I can't tell you the amount of times that we work with customers and their systems are disparaged, right? They are disconnected. And even with the person trying their best to solve the problem, having all the information at hand just isn't possible in that moment, right?
Yep.
And so asking repeat questions, doing that again. So Gladly help solve that problem by putting all conversations in one spot. So love that. So if we are working in that model and we have that great tier one layer in and it's working really well, and now we've created a tier two escalation pod. When you look at that model and a company has built that, where do you think they still might struggle?
Well, I think if somebody does have that approach and that setup already, I think they're ahead of the curve, and I think their head is in the right space, so to speak. The way I describe that is, like, let your experts work on the things that require experts. And that's how I think about AI. And pre-AI, like, some of your best folks, like, had to just close out very, very, very simple tickets over and over. And so now we have the ability to separate this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what that should do, hypothetically, is give your experts more time. And one of the things that, is very counterintuitive, and the head of digital from Stio is an outdoor brand that a lot of you may know. He sat down with me a year and a half ago, and he said, "Am I your only customer that's never going to use AI?" And I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And he says, "Yeah, we have a $550 average order value. People deserve to talk to a human." And I said, and I shared this concept, and I said, well, fill in the blank high affinity companies are looking at this in a different way, where they actually want their average handle time to go up. And in the world that we've all lived in, that is one of the craziest things that you could have ever heard. Like, if somebody
Mhm.
told you that 5 years ago, you would have never taken another meeting with that person again. Right. But all of a sudden, it's like, what is really investing in that two-tier system? It's thinking about changing your KPIs and changing your overall outlook and methodology, and saying, if I'm getting a lot of these, time and cost savings from this other area, should I be rethinking how this tier two support is doing? And some companies, again, are saying, I want you to spend a little extra time talking about, whatever it is they may be. And sometimes that's a challenging situation where we want the human and the empathy, and that's got to be there. But there are
Mhm.
also positive situations as well, where maybe somebody's doing interior design and Crate and Barrel, they want their people saying, how can we increase their order value by making recommendations of products based on what we understand about their style. But again, a lot of the old KPIs in this kind of new two-tier system that some of us have, imprinted, in our DNA of, like, we should be lowering handle time. You
Right.
really have to go back and look at everything from as if from the very beginning.
Right. That's a great point. Well, thank you, Charlie, for coming on with us today at the CX Summit. It's great to see you again, obviously, and good to hear more about the Gladly platform, what you guys offer your customers, how you keep everything in that one spot. And I hope that, we get to work together again in the future. And I'll see you when I come down to Atlanta.
I'll see you at the Gladly Connect conference. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it, and I love what Instance Teams does. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's great to have you.